All right, guys, it's 1 o'clock on a Saturday, so if you're here, that means you want help. And I appreciate everybody for coming. I am not a good public speaker. I don't do well with trying to follow notes and a design of how I should talk about things. I'm a rambler. I don't talk well. I do much better with Q&A where people can kind of direct the questions. So we're going to use this very loosely. I have some ideas of things that we're going to cover. You have your guide in front of you, and this is a program that we use for all of our new clients that come to us. We realize nutrition is such a big piece. We need to give people a roadmap of what to focus on when it comes to nutrition. So I can start this conversation off by saying the majority of the things that you've ever heard about nutrition are predominantly false. Because if they weren't, I'm pretty sure all of us would feel confident in the amount of nutrition knowledge that we can actually take action on. Okay? When it comes to nutrition, the big theme that we're going to talk about today is it is never the what, it is always the how. Okay? So it's not so much what kind of foods we eat, what time of the day we eat, it's how we approach food at particular meals. Okay? And it's how we set ourselves up for proper behavior surrounding food and our entire day. This packet is kind of here's everything you need to focus on, but I bet you that as we go through this packet, you'll either identify with bits and pieces of everything, or you'll say that's one thing that I don't do really well. The majority of you will find that aha moment when we get to the back page of the packet. We're going to cover all of the easy stuff first, and then we're going to break down to the more specific things when it comes to nutrition, which is more related to food behavior, if that makes sense. So again, not so much what's on our plate or what we're eating at each meal, but more along the lines of how we set ourselves up for that particular meal. Okay? So when anyone ever comes to us for nutrition, the big thing that I tell them is this right here. It's not so much that you don't know the answer to the question, it's that you don't know the right question to ask. Right? There is no shortage of information out there in this day and age. So if it were as simple as 1 + 2 = 3, everybody, that was a joke. Everybody would be successful, but we're not, because all of these nutritional pieces come down to behaviors and habits. So if anyone has ever struggled to lose weight, keep weight off, gain lean muscle mass, whatever your particular goal is, you can always circle it back to the fact that we have bad or poor nutrition habits that we can improve upon. The reason why these habits are such a big deal is because when life gets in the way, if we have an ingrained habit, how many people in here have lost weight for a 4, 6, 12-week period but then have gained it right back? Has anybody fallen into that trap before? Right. And the reason is because we can do anything for a 6-week period when motivation is at its highest, right? The problem is that if we don't find a way to sustain that over a long period of time, it's going to drop off really quickly, and then you're going to find yourself going all the way back to zero, and sometimes even gaining more weight than you had started with initially. And that really just comes down to the fact that if you don't ingrain those habits to be there when shit gets real, like kids, work, travel, whatever the case may be, vacation, if you don't have those habits to fall back on, that foundation isn't there, you're not going to have anything to hold you to keep going forward. Okay? So that's what we're going to dive into today. So before we get started, anybody have any questions, comments based off of that stuff right there? All feel pretty good? Perfect. So let's hop on to page 1. Okay? So when it comes to nutrition, again, we're going to start with the easiest things first. Okay? And this is stuff that you probably are in no shortage of, right, when it comes to information. If your house is not set up for good nutrition, chances are you're not going to choose good nutrition when you're trying to ingrain better habits. So if you don't have cooking materials at your house to make a smoothie, put something in the frying pan, put something in the oven, baste the chicken, whatever the case may be, you're already starting from behind the starting line. Okay? So the first thing that we want to do when it comes to nutrition is just set our environment up for success. What that means is do we have proper cooking materials? If we don't have proper cooking materials, do we have a reliable source somewhere in our close network to make it easy to access? Meaning, Whole Foods does prepared foods for us, right? They will literally cook the major portions of your meal. Is it realistic to have access to that on a weekly basis? If it's not, then it's obvious that a lot of those pieces are going to have to take place in the household. So if they got to take place in the household, that environment has to be set up for success. If you know that you're the type of person that is going to grab for the box of Cheez-Its or pretzels or whatever at 9 o'clock at night when it's time to go to sleep, probably not going to do too well with nutrition, because those habits are deeply ingrained in you. It's going to be really hard to build better habits when those lingering poor habits are still there. As we dive deeper into this, you'll learn that you can't replace a bad habit without incorporating a good habit, but that good habit implementation gets a lot easier when that devil isn't on your shoulder like, come on, just one potato chip, is not there on a consistent basis, all right? Again, not everybody's going to struggle with this, but set your environment up for success, all right? Second, know what foods you actually like. We do not have to eat cardboard every day, day in and day out, to achieve nutritional success for the majority of people, all right? A lot of people are going to ask me, well, don't I need to eat chicken and broccoli? Like, I guess you could, but it sucks after like 3 days of chicken and broccoli. We've all kind of been there, right? So what you need to do is identify what foods that you actually enjoy and shop for those foods. All of us come from different backgrounds, right? I was raised in an Italian household. We had pasta and meatballs 5 days a week for dinner. No joke, right? And if it wasn't meatballs, it was meatloaf or chicken parm, right? So we all grow up with a different idea of the foods that we enjoy. And at this stage in our life, it's probably not likely that we're going to go too erratic as far as trying new things. Although we might get to that stage at some point, but for right now, it's probably not realistic. So on that list, you'll see all of these approved protein choices, okay? What I want you to do now is look at that list, mark off all the protein choices that you actually like and would eat. It's not an elaborate list. There are definitely other directions you can go with this list. But if you are anywhere between 5 and 8 items deep on this list, you're pretty much good to go. If you only like 3 things on that list, too bad. No. It's going to be much harder for you to achieve nutritional success. A lot of times people come to me and they go, hey, I'm vegetarian. I need to lose weight. What do I do? And I go, it's going to be hard. Because although you can really reduce the amount of calories you take in on a daily basis, protein is the most essential nutrient for our body. And if you have kids, or you have work, or you're not just an Instagram vegetarian freak who circles their life around being vegetarian, it's going to be very difficult to get your protein requirement on a consistent basis without eating something on that list, okay? Is anyone in here not like 3 to 5 items deep on that list? We're all pretty good, or at least after I bashed vegetarians, nobody wants to admit it. Nothing against vegetarians. There are successful vegans, there are successful vegetarians all over the place. But what I would recommend is if the #1 goal is to lose weight or sustainable health, I would highly suggest expanding your palate and being a little bit more reasonable with the how, not so much the what. Make sense? Cool. Flip that page. Come here. What we got next? What's number? What vegetables? Beautiful. Again, this list can get much bigger, but go through that vegetable list. Let's identify some vegetables that we really like to enjoy. When it comes to vegetables, typically the more colorful the better. The crunchier the better. Okay?
Enjoy or will tolerate meat?
I say we'll tolerate meat.
Yeah.
Enjoy is kind of a separate, yeah, I know it says enjoy at the top, but for right now, if you struggle with that, let's go with we'll tolerate meat. Because when it comes down to it, when we're trying to ingrain a solid behavior, having something that's like 70% there versus 100% there might just be enough to execute on a good habit that we're trying to ingrain. And we'll talk about those habits in a minute. All right, go ahead and mark off the ones that we'll tolerate. I'm there with you. I'm there with you. Cool. Any questions so far? No, we feel all right? So Raj, what do we got next? Oh, you're jumping ahead.
What complex carbs do you enjoy?
Complex carbs, beautiful. I will say that the majority of people will do well with less carbs in their diet. However, carbohydrates are the preferred nutrient for energy. So if you are working out more than 3 days a week, which most of the people in this room are, your body is going to do okay tolerating a little bit of carbohydrate. Later on in this talk today, we'll also discuss body types, how that matters when it comes to building your plate and what carbohydrates you would prefer to eat and which ones you'll tolerate well, because we're all made differently. I can literally eat any carb at any time and probably not gain a pound, but if I have something that's highly saturated in fat, I'm going to put on weight pretty rapidly. So we all deal with things differently, but we'll talk about that more later. So go ahead and identify what complex carbs sound like they're in your wheelhouse.
Do you mean brown rice when you say rice?
Either or, and that's a really good point. I know we've kind of gotten fixated on the idea of brown rice, white rice, sweet potato, baked potato, which one's better. That's the what. We don't want to focus on the what. If you're a bodybuilder and you need to go from 8% body fat to 5% body fat, it matters. If you're looking to lose more than 20 to 30 pounds, it does not matter. Okay? It's more important the food behavior itself than it is so much the what. So again, make it simple. Pick something that you would enjoy or tolerate. Cool. Any questions so far? Feel good? All right. Are we completely bored or am I doing okay?
No.
We're all right? We're good? Okay, cool. Awesome. Because it's really hot in this thing, so I'm trying my best.
I'm cold, so if you take it off, I won't. Yeah.
Healthy fats. Last one. This one's a tricky area. And it's because the majority of the time when it comes down to like losing weight or leaning out, really we're looking at a reduction in calories is ultimately what's going to allow us to achieve that. However, fats are essential for building hormones of the body, so we need them in our diet. Certain people are going to do better with producing them in their body than others. I just got done saying that if I take in a good amount of fat, I'm probably going to gain weight, whereas someone who is a little bit larger by nature is going to tolerate them very well and is probably going to do better with losing weight when they increase their dietary fat. So pick some things that you like because they are high satiety foods, which means that if you do struggle with being hungry on a consistent basis, incorporating some dietary fat into your diet could allow you to maintain satiety for a longer period of time. Cool? All right. This was all the easy stuff. This was the what. This is not information that you can't get elsewhere, but sometimes it's good to just outline it for yourself. Like, who cares what the person on that Google blog was saying about what they eat on a daily basis? If you don't eat it, it doesn't matter. Going back to the how versus the what. Sure, it's good food, but if it doesn't fit into your lifestyle or foods that are palatable for you, why try to incorporate it? You're going to be less likely to execute it for the long term if you don't enjoy those particular foods. Cool? Any questions on that? No? Awesome. All right. Now, step 3, we're talking about planning ahead. This is probably the area that people struggle with the most. But we've already done a really good thing. Believe it or not, you've already given yourself a grocery shopping list by identifying the foods that you're going to eat. Well, what if my kids don't eat it? Too bad. They're kids. Put it on the table. They'll eat it. We've done it with my kids. They might not like it at first. My mom did it with me. We went from beautiful white pasta the whole week. It was terrible for 2 weeks, but we adjusted and we're fine now. Okay? Sometimes with the kids, we get caught, my kids don't like that. They will. They're not going to starve. They'll be just fine. So if it fits in a healthier lifestyle and it's going to make you a better person, I implore you to do it. This is coming from a dad with 3 kids, so if I can do it, everybody in this room should be able to do the same. Cool? Look at your calendar ahead. You know your schedule on a weekly basis. It doesn't change that much. I know we all like to talk about, well, I got this thing, yeah, but you relatively know what meals you're going to have at home, what meals you're going to have on the road. If you have travel plans coming up, know which meals you're going to need to prepare for. How many breakfasts are we going to have a week at home? How many lunch meals are we going to have at home versus at work? Dinner, same idea. All right? If we are going to eat out at lunch every day of the week because we travel to the city or what have you, we should know where we're going to go eat food, or we should know which area is going to supply us with food that fits within this regimen. Okay? Failure to plan is a plan to fail. Look at your week ahead. Spend 5 to 10 minutes on a Sunday. I'm not talking about meal prep here. I'm just talking about, like, let's look at our calendar and let's identify, okay, I know that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I need to pack a lunch. Okay? So we at least have some idea as to what to expect for that upcoming week. Cool? Cool? All right, beautiful. Again, make a menu, right? Know what we want to have for those particular meals. Go back to that shopping list that we just made. You just told me what proteins you like. You just told me what vegetables you like, what carbs you like. Now, which one of those are you going to have for breakfast versus lunch versus dinner? Cottage cheese might taste great for breakfast, but after a long day, I don't know if I want to come home to cottage cheese in the summer. That's just me, though. All right? So identify next to those food items that you just made. I want everyone to put either a B, L, or D. And if it's all three, put B, L, D for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So go back to your proteins, go back to your veggies, go back to your carbs and say, hey, I can definitely have this for breakfast, or I can definitely have this for lunch and dinner. Identify those things. That way, when you do go to plan ahead, you could say, oh, wow, this food item actually works well for all three. I will absolutely make sure that's in my fridge on a weekly basis. Because when push comes to shove, I know that I can fall back on that particular item. Sydney, question?
Where do you have milk?
What's that?
Milk.
Milk would fall in as a protein. It's a beverage, so I didn't throw. I'm purely focusing on foods we're eating right now, but milk would fall in as a protein if it needed to. Yeah. And no, milk is not bad for you. I know there's a lot of. It might be bad for the cow, and how we get it. But in terms of how it is for you, everybody is different. Please try not to follow blanket statements like go vegetarian, go keto, anti-dairy. If it's working for you, it's working. I have dairy every day, and my stomach hasn't fallen out of my body yet, so I'm pretty sure I'm okay.
So this doesn't mean we can't have things that aren't on this list.
Correct,
Right?
correct. These are a very generic approved foods list, okay? Again, there's no shortage for nutrition knowledge out there, so Cheetos wasn't one of the recommended carbohydrates, obviously, right? But if you have something that's in your culture that you enjoy as a protein, dietary fat, what have you, add it to that list. Again, if this was my list, it would say meatballs for protein, pasta for carbs. I don't eat that way anymore, but right. Take your time while doing that.
So like bread didn't make it on.
Bread did not make it on here. However, it's not a deal breaker. Because we'll talk a little bit more specifically about the how later. Again, the majority of people will do better limiting their carbohydrate intake. I don't mean to single you out unless you're like Chris, who plays tennis 3 days a week, comes in to work out here 3 days a week. Activity level, you're gonna need some carbohydrates to keep up with that kind of activity. One more thing on the menu bit. Has anyone heard of the KISS principle?
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. We like to say keep it stupid, simple, just so no one gets offended. But yeah, keep it simple, stupid. So complexity is the enemy of execution. When we're talking about developing habits, we need the red carpet laid out for us. So the simpler, the better. We don't need to make some gourmet meal for dinner, okay? Make a meal for dinner that you know you could take for lunch tomorrow, or you have leftovers, something along those lines. Once you get in the proper habits, right, of instilling good food behaviors, then we can say, all right, now I'm going to put my chef hat on and I'm going to start killing it in the kitchen. But for now, the simpler, the better. The more complex you make it, the less likely you're going to be able to execute on those habits long term. It's why meal plans don't work. Okay, try this great recipe, it's awesome, like breadless buffalo chicken wings. Like, yeah, that sounds whatever, but I'm not making those for 52 weeks out of the year, right? Pick something that is going to be simple, all right?
Can I ask a whiny question?
Please.
I don't know what I want to eat on Friday and on Sunday.
Okay.
So how do you deal with that? And that maybe other people don't have that problem, but.
Some people do. I would imagine that more people have that problem than not. Like, it's the weekend.
I'm happy to see some nods.
Yeah, yeah. And well, I think that comes down to like developing your fitness mission and better having a handle on like, okay, this is just the way I eat now. So it's not like a question of what should I eat? It's like, I eat this, right? That comes later. When we dive into it now, we're going to talk more about the how. It's not so much like if you want to have pizza on a Friday night, is that the best food for you? No. But one slice of pizza is better than 3, right? So if it has to be like the last second, like we're going out to eat type of deal, or I'm not sure what to eat, the how is going to matter a lot more than the what, okay? But habits come down to consistency. It's not so much the, okay, we were away on vacation, or I was traveling for 3 days, or I was swamped at work and I couldn't make lunch any of my days. It's not what we do in one particular day, week, or even couple weeks in a row. It's the consistency, repetitive action that you do over and over and over again that relates to long-term success. If you have pizza every Friday for the rest of the year, you're probably going to slow your progress. But maybe that's just what you need right now, and maybe we just need to be realistic with ourselves and say, I'm just going to have the pizza. And that's okay because I'm developing so many other healthy habits that are going to allow me to get to where I need to be, maybe at a slower pace, but once I get there, it's going to be sustainable and I'm not going back.
So what's so wrong with pizza?
Yeah, I was going to say
everything that's
same
on
thing.
our list here.
You're looking at a guy, you're looking at a guy who, it's probably a bad example. You're looking at a guy who, I literally eat the same thing every day because I'm at a different position in nutrition at this point in my life. It's just the way it is. I own a gym. So I feel like I should follow things a little bit more, or execute on things a little bit more strictly than I would ask you guys to. Nothing is wrong with pizza. Nothing is wrong with pizza.
You can make a
You have
really
to
good
say
pizza.
Yeah, especially if it's homemade.
I was getting ready to get up and walk out. Something wrong with pizza.
Nothing wrong with pizza. All right? McDonald's fries with a Big Mac and a cherry Coke. That's probably worst case scenario.
Pretty sure we all added pizza with a BLE next to it.
Yeah.
It's breakfast, lunch,
Morning,
dinner.
yeah. Especially morning after when it's cold. Yeah, I get it. I know how it feels. All right, before we move on, anything else?
I'm going to Nomads tonight.
Oh my God.
For my mother and me.
I wish this wasn't on the video, but it's live. Nomad is so good.
Monty's is better.
Oh, no, we can't get in that discussion. We're going to focus now. All right. Let's go ahead and turn the page. So we got the idea of planning ahead. Oh, but real quick, if you don't have time, I don't like the excuse, I don't have time. Whole Foods, Wegmans, Prime Now. Who has used Prime Now? It's amazing. Hour and a half for grocery shopping. They do it all for you. You give them a tip. There's no extra cost to it. They deliver the groceries right to your house. The lack of time is no longer an excuse in this day and age. Okay?
How do they do with the produce? They give you good produce?
Excellent.
Or, really?
I've never had a problem.
Okay.
Though, no, I won't say that. This one guy keeps getting me white American instead of yellow American cheese, and I can't stand it. But other than that, I've stopped putting it on the list. I go there for 5 minutes and grab it myself. But there's no shortage of time, okay? Whole Foods, Wegmans, they prep the big parts of the meal for you. So like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, string beans, all that stuff is right there for you. You just say, hey, give me a pound of that, give me 5 chicken breasts. Boom, you're set for at least a certain amount of meals during the week. It's right there in your fridge. All you have to do is heat it up and eat it. Okay?
So you're not talking about the buffet in Whole Foods, right?
Well,
Yeah. Or are you? I
we
don't
get
know.
dangerous there, and we'll talk about that's more on the
Okay.
how discussion. We'll jump into that now.
Okay.
All right. I'm totally freestyling all of this. This was not planned. I have some basic notes here, but if I tried to follow something, it would be totally lame and boring. So I'm trying to make it as spicy as possible. Okay. When it comes to your meals, we do not count calories. Again, if you are not a bodybuilder or an Olympic or professional athlete, counting calories is a very short-sighted and unsustainable approach for you. Has anyone tried calorie counting in the past? Okay. It works for a little while because it gives you some guideline as to say, yep, here's my range of how much I should eat, but what happens if you worked out the day before? And what happens if you didn't get a good night's sleep? And what happens if, I don't know, the Triscuits don't necessarily fall into the points plan that you're supposed to be following, right? Your dietary needs fluctuate on a daily basis, okay? If you're a bodybuilder and you come in, you hit the same idea of a workout week after week after week, you don't need, your meals are your meals and you're dialed in and you measure it and that's it because that's all you do. But we're different. We have life going on, all right? We have responsibilities, we have kids, we have jobs. It's very hard to sustain the idea of calorie counting for the long term because it's boring and it's annoying logging all this shit in your phone. It's not a realistic way. It's a great thing to do maybe once every 3 months to see, okay, where am I ending up? But it's also a very generic way of calculating how many calories your body needs on a daily basis, okay? When you factor in all the variables that could go on, calorie counting can be off by as much as 20%, okay? I don't know about you, but let's talk about this. Say we're supposed to eat 2,000 calories a day. 20% of 2,000 is 400. A pound of fat weighs 3,500 a pound of fat is 3,500 calories, right? 400 times 7 is 3,800 calories. So if you're off by 20% for a whole week, you just gained a pound. Cool? We're going to teach you how to pay attention to like what your body needs at a particular meal over the long term in order to gauge how much food we need at a particular meal. Sound good? That being said, there are some basic recommendations for like sizing up how much food to put on our plate. Sorry ladies, guys get to eat a lot more than you do, for the most part, okay? Again, these are very generic guidelines. Do not follow them foolproof. Don't come back to me like 3 months from now saying, dude, I gained 30 pounds because you told me I had to eat 2 of these of protein at each meal. It's a very generic guideline. I would probably do very well eating 2 of these at each meal because I work out 5 to 7 days a week, okay? Not everybody's going to be the same. Age, every year after 30, your metabolism drops by 1%. So if you're 50, you have a 20% reduction in your metabolism than I do. Okay, and that, again, another very generic calculation, but it holds pretty true. Unless, Chris, you might be outside that range because you're yoked and
old.
you. Okay, so for when it comes to protein, guys, we're thinking 2 palm-sized portions of protein at each meal. Okay, this guy, not the fingers, just this guy. Okay, so 2 quarter-pound burger patties at each meal. How many people are at least putting that on their plate at each meal, protein-wise? What this requirement is asking you to do.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
I know. But protein is the most essential nutrient of the body. So if we're going to overeat or over-ingest or have the opportunity to over-ingest of any particular nutrient, it should be this one.
Did you just tell us to eat 2 quarter-pounders every day?
He did.
Every meal.
Every meal.
Every meal?
Again,
I can do that.
don't come back in 3 months and say, hey, I gained weight, because we're going to talk more specifically about how to approach that. But you want to be able to set yourself up for success and have a gauge of like how much should go on my plate for each particular meal. Yes?
Is this for 3 meals a day? Is that
Yeah. So at each meal. So what this would equate to is like 4 to 6 eggs for breakfast. 8 ounces of chicken breast. This is for guys. This is for guys. This is for guys.
Mm-hmm.
Or a 6-ounce piece of steak, to put it in terms. All right, ladies, we're looking for a palm-sized portion at each meal. Just one. Unfortunately, you don't get to eat quite as much.
So
Okay.
2 eggs.
So
2
2
to
eggs.
3 eggs.
That's
But still,
low.
I feel like that's a lot.
I know.
I know.
And again, we'll dive into exactly how you approach the eating. Again, we're just trying to set the boundaries for this is our plate of success. Now, a lot of this sounds big to people because we get into the habit of eating small meals frequently. Because I don't know if you guys remember the surge 10 years ago that said 6 small frequent meals is good for your metabolism. That's a load of shit. It's not. It actually encourages you to eat more calories on a daily basis, because what happens is we have this like hunger scale that our body goes through on a daily basis, right? So if we have this hunger scale, this is like 0 out of 10 hungry, this is 10 out of 10 hungry, and this down here is time throughout the day. Say we get to like this mid-range, 5 out of 10 hungry, and we have a small meal. We're going to reduce our hunger down to like, I don't know, 3 to 4. And then we're going to be hungry again in 2 hours. So we're going to be more likely to have another meal or potentially even over-ingest at that next meal. And because our body very rarely gets down to that baseline when eating small, frequent meals, we wind up accumulating more calories over a daily basis versus doing this. Three larger meals per day. Again, we're going to get into the specifics on how much food we want to take in, but if you take the averages on a daily basis of how much food you're consuming, I guarantee you if you're a person that needs a snack after breakfast before lunch and then a snack after lunch before dinner or before you come to the gym, chances are you're taking in too many calories on a daily basis because all you're doing is you're basically like pushing that hunger to the side, but it's only going to come back 2 hours later because you didn't give it the nutrients it needed to make it a longer period of time. Okay? We were made to ingest larger amounts of food in one sitting and then go hours, if not days, without eating. Okay? Our bodies have adapted a little bit differently over time, but that's why 3 meals per day for us is still the recommendation because you're probably going to eat less at a particular meal than you would if you chose smaller meals throughout the day. Cool? Eating does not stimulate your metabolism. The only thing that stimulates your metabolism is the amount of lean muscle mass you're carrying. Okay, so the more lean muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn on a daily basis. The more physically active you are, the more calories you burn on a daily basis, which is why protein is still the #1 most essential nutrient of the body. If you don't have protein, you are not building lean muscle mass. If you're not building lean muscle mass, you are not burning as much fat on a daily basis as you potentially could. Cool? Cool? All right, moving on. Vegetables. This is #2. And this is #2 for a couple reasons. Does anyone know why vegetables tend to fill us up more than most other food groups other than proteins?
Fiber.
Fiber is part of it, but it's more important that it goes a little bit deeper than fiber.
Water.
Water, yeah, water is a big part of it. Specifically, it's the vitamin mineral content of that particular food, and it goes down to what's called nutrition partitioning. So when we eat like any macronutrient, like a protein, a carb, or a fat, those are like your 3 main nutrients of the body. Anytime we eat one of those, the body doesn't know what to do with it unless it has a vitamin or a mineral attached to it to tell the body where that particular thing should go and how it should be used for energy. So, which is why, like if someone is eating fast food, very high in calories, very low in vitamins and minerals, people tend to overeat on fast food because they need more and more and more of it to reach the same amount of energy level because the body doesn't know what to do with it. Does that make sense? Right? So the higher the vitamin and mineral content, the better your body is going to be at partitioning those foods. Cool? So we need protein to build lean muscle mass and build hormones and basically every tissue of the body. Okay? So if you have bad nails, bad hair, bad skin, you should probably eat more protein. Don't say what you want to say. Okay? This is hereditary. Vitamins and minerals from the vegetables, again the fiber, the water content, all that is spot on, but those vitamins and minerals tell all these other nutrients what to do. And the more vitamins and minerals we have on a daily basis, the less likely we are to overeat at any particular meal.
So should we be taking our vitamin supplements with a meal?
I don't like supplementation because there's no real proof, substantial evidence that shows that they actually do the same things that vegetables and whole foods do.
Yeah, but you're selling us the Corplex over here, so I'm just
If
saying
you're
that
going to hit a baseline,
yeah.
yeah. If you don't take your vegetables, if you don't like your vegetables, yeah, like here's a baseline. You should be doing something like this.
But should you take that with food? Would it be better?
I would,
utilized
if you're asking me, yeah, I would say probably. I'd say would probably do a better job, but you also got to argue like water soluble versus soluble vitamin, fat soluble vitamins, so it depends.
Okay.
If you're taking if you're talking about again, like vitamin C, it doesn't really matter when you take it because your body's just going to take in whatever it needs and then excrete the rest of it. Yeah. Cool.
So why are we limiting the quantity of vegetables?
I don't want to say limiting, but most people are not going to put this much on their plate to begin with. We'll dive a little bit more specifically into how to build your plate for the body type in a little bit. If you want to eat more vegetables than this, I'm not necessarily going to stop you. However, I don't necessarily want you eating an increased amount of vegetables if you're not going to achieve your protein requirement. Okay? Because if you don't have protein, and vegetables do have protein in them, but they're incomplete sources of protein. If you don't combine it with a starchy carb or something along those lines, it's not going to make a complete protein source, and even then, it's still not as good as ripping the leg off that cow and eating it, which is why I'm such an advocate of eating meat. But it's still possible to get that protein requirement, but if it's just vegetables by itself, you're not going to get there. And if you don't have the protein, you don't have the lean muscle mass, you're really fighting an uphill battle in terms of how well your body is going to burn fat on a daily basis. Cool?
What's the difference between a fist-sized portion and a palm-sized portion? So is that smaller or bigger?
It's about I don't know. I guess it depends on the hand. You got bigger fingers or bigger palms. So this is vegetables tend to come like this. Most protein sources don't look like this. They tend to be a quarter to half an inch thick. That's all.
Gotcha.
Cool. All right, next. Carbs. Everybody's worst enemy. Using the cup of your hand, okay? If you're not sure, stick your dirty hand into a bowl of quinoa. Whatever comes out after you shake it a couple times like that is a serving. Whatever amount of berries you can sprinkle into your hand or fruit that you can put in the cup of your hand, that's a serving. Guys, we're looking for 2 of these. Ladies, we're looking for closer to 1. Questions on that? No?
So it sounds like we're all probably eating way more carbs and way less protein.
Probably.
You can just switch it around.
Probably, yeah, probably.
So in fact, if I had a portion of cantaloupe, I shouldn't have quinoa or rice, because they're in the same category.
For the majority of the people in this room, yes. For you, probably not. You work out close to 6 days a week, and you're a certain body type that tolerates carbs well. You're
I just hadn't, I think of fruits and vegetables and carbs.
So
just hadn't thought of
we'll
fruit.
dive into this a little bit, but yeah, certain fruits for people who tend to just be larger, just because it's their body type, fruits are going to count as carbs for you.
Okay.
To a certain extent. There's some carbs that's still going to be fine for you to take in on a daily basis, but we'll talk about portion recommendations in a little bit. Cool? Yeah. Cool. And the last one, again, the one we don't think about very much is dietary fat. This one's the tricky one. For guys, we're thinking a thumb to 2 thumbs at each meal. For ladies, we're thinking anywhere from half to a thumb. But a thumb would be a teaspoon of olive oil drizzled over our salad, or a less than a quarter cup of almonds, or a tablespoon of peanut butter. That's what we're thinking about. If you're eating a red meat source or something like that, or a whole egg, that dietary fat is already in there. But if it's not a protein source, typically that fat is not attached to it. It's going to be a whole source, like one of the things that you outlined on your first sheet.
What does this mean for avocado?
Like a quarter of an avocado,
Like a
probably.
quarter?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, you had a question?
Where would you put cheese?
In between fat and protein, probably. Unless you if you're getting 0%, which I typically don't recommend, or 2%, you're looking at it's more protein than it is fat. But if you get a whole fat source of cheese or dairy, it's typically an even split almost of the 2. So.
I think, because I happened to be reading this last night, the creamier the cheese, the fatter it is.
Yeah, pretty
like
much.
a Parmesan or real hard cheese.
Yeah,
is
typically.
less fat per
Yeah,
ounce.
because it's.
Yeah.
You ever hold a soluble block of fat?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty dense. All right. I'm going to turn the tables on you guys.
Do you have to follow the same portions during non-workout days?
I'd like to, because it makes it really easy. There's a lot of stuff out there like, oh, on your workout day you should have a little bit more carbs. I guess so, but if you're just trying to build consistent habits and you're not a professional athlete, you might want to just stay with the same recommendations until you get to the physique that you're like, okay, I feel good about this. Now, if I want to put on a little bit more lean muscle mass, or if I want to build muscle and reduce a certain body fat percentage, then you can talk a little bit more specifically about what to eat on workout days and what to eat on non-workout days. But for the majority of people, it doesn't. Like, I eat the same thing every day regardless if I'm working out or not. And so far, I haven't had any issues, but I'll keep you posted.
Can you tell us about what you eat every day? I mean, that's
You don't want to know what I eat every day. It's a lot of food. It's a lot. I work out 7 days a week, so I eat the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner pretty much every day. But that's not, you aren't that. You guys are not that, and you probably will never be that. I've done this my entire life since I was 14 years old. I've played sports, I've bodybuilded, I've done powerlifting, I've done everything. So it's just a natural part of me. Everybody else in here, we're coming from like, yeah, maybe we played some sports and stuff like that, but the majority of us, if you're here today, are not coming from the background of my parents inbred this in me, or it's just been a part of my life since I was 14. We're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old now. We need a different approach and something that's more realistic. Yeah, I would gross you out with the amount of food that I eat. Cool? All right, guys. I'm going to turn, does anyone, yeah.
Where does beer come in?
What is it?
Beer.
Beer? In the trash. No. We wrote a really good article on alcohol intake 2 years ago. Go on our blog and search the word alcohol as a tag. It will really depress you on what alcohol does. Essentially, anything positive you've ever heard about alcohol is absolutely false. That's not to say that you can't drink it, but you are going to be pushing yourself back. Every alcoholic beverage contains 100 to 150 calories. If you're having one drink per day, that's basically, you know, anywhere between 700 to, help me out, 1,000, right, roughly calories per week. So over the course of a year, you're looking at putting on 12 pounds by having one drink a day, or at least trying to fight that. We had a woman in here, I won't say her name for her privacy, but we were working on nutrition. Our alcohol article came out, she stopped drinking. She lost 15 pounds in like 4 weeks. It matters. It matters. What about the health benefits of alcohol? There's a lot of health benefits in fruit and water too. So let's not trick ourselves into thinking. Again, it's a cost-benefit ratio. I'm going to have a glass of wine 5 nights a week because I'd rather struggle with working it off than not just being able to enjoy myself. So you just got to find out where you lie. You might just need to cut it out for a little while so you're in a position where you don't like need to cut it out of your life anymore and then slowly incorporate it back in. But it doesn't, it's not on this list for a reason, let's put it that way. Okay. Everything I just told you over the last, how many minutes have we gone now? This has been fun. Over the last 50 minutes, 45, whatever, does not matter. Unless you're doing the things we're about to talk about now. And the reason why it's last is because it's the hardest thing for people to do. Okay? It's so KISS, K-I-S-S, it'll make you go like, that's ridiculous. There's no way this could possibly work. But just because it's simple does not necessarily make it easy. And this is just because we've been ingrained in doing particular habits for such a long period of time that these things we're going to talk about today are probably the hardest for people. Okay? Number one, on a daily basis, we need to have a really good understanding of our body awareness and how hungry we are. A lot of times we mistake the word hunger for boredom or lack of attention. I don't know if you guys know this, but the brain was made to focus on more things at once. But I'm going to contradict that in a second. When we were hunters and gatherers, we had to make a fire and make sure that no wolf simultaneously took us out. Okay? We did not have a lot of complex tasks. okay, during our evolutionary years. We have a lot of complex tasks now, okay? So the whole idea of multitasking has gone out the window. For us to be able to focus on things, we need to be attentive to the particular thing that we're doing. All right? So knowing what your hunger is like on a daily basis is extremely important. If you're a scale of 1 to 4 on hungry, you are not hungry. You are bored or unstimulated or just need to get up and move around because your body is craving a metabolic process of some sort, and the easiest one to do that everyone can do really well is hunger, is just eat something. I guarantee you if you're a 1 to 4, you get up and go for a walk for 5 minutes and sit back down at your desk or whatever, you will stop being hungry. How many people in here have gone like 8 hours in a row without eating just because they were distracted by something important? Case in point, we do not need food regularly. Hunger is not an emergency. You are not going to die. You have plenty of body fat, lean muscle tissue on your body to sustain you for days on end without food. Don't let yourself fall into the trap of thinking as soon as you get that slight growl in your stomach that you need to head out and grab some food. Switch tasks. Stop sitting at the computer. Put the dishes down. Whatever it is that you're doing. Stop building the fence. I don't know what you guys do on a daily basis, but whatever you're doing, do something else for a little while if you feel yourself just a slight bit of hunger. Our sweet spot that we're looking for is like that 5 to 7, probably closer to 6 to 8. Okay? That's like I'm hungry enough that I could sit down and enjoy a meal. If you're not hungry enough to eat a full meal, you should probably wait. Snacks are for children, meals are for adults. Okay? And side note, because I have kids, most kids don't need snacks. Okay, so if you have kids, never ask them if they want a snack. If you're ever going to have kids, never ask them if they want a snack, because they probably don't. And you're just ingraining poor habits.
What if you have low blood sugar?
That's a different, that's a whole other, this is nutrition for the masses, not for the specific recommendations.
I just thought maybe you might have an idea.
I don't unfortunately. And I'd be out of my range if I even tried to conjure up something, so I won't.
All right.
Yeah.
That's more low glycemic, right?
Yes.
Low glycemic foods that sustain longer.
Correct. Yeah. Complex carbohydrates. Okay. Remove all distractions. So when we go to sit down for a meal, how many people eat the majority of their meals in front of a screen, reading the paper? Does anyone read the paper anymore? Chris does great. Some type of in front of the TV, right? Like we all do it. Eating is a complex task. We are no longer in the evolutionary ages where we're going to go 48 to 72 hours without having a meal. We're just not. So when we eat our food, we need to be very aware as to how much food we're taking in at that particular meal. So if we're not aware of how much food we're taking in at that particular meal, we are going to overeat. It's not a question, it's going to happen. So the best thing that you can do is put everything that's going to be a distraction to the side. It's boring as hell. It's not fun. Yes?
So let's say you plan it out correctly, where you have your portions right and everything, and you know exactly the quantity and everything that you want to eat. Then is a distraction okay?
We'll talk about that, why it's coming up. It's the next one that we're talking about now.
Got it.
And that just goes back to the idea of the 20% rule. That caloric calculation can be off by as much as 20%. What you did the day before, what your activities are that day, how much sleep you got all factor into that number of how much food we need, which is why each meal basically is like a fresh start. You're a totally different person meal by meal. Cool? That plate recommendation is just like, hey, let's make sure we have all the nutrients our body needs on a plate. Cool? If you guys do anything today, you will get the most out of that one right there. After coaching hundreds of people on our nutrition program and talking with people on a daily basis about nutrition, I have found that this one is probably the biggest thing keeping people from losing weight. The distraction at a meal-by-meal basis, because you cannot create body awareness if you are distracted. Yes, your brain craves additional stimulation like we talked about. It wants it. We have to cut that out, get back to focusing on one task at a time. Write down these two books, Hyper-Focus, The Power of Less. If you want to fast track yourself personally and professionally in your life, I highly suggest you look at these two books. They will tell you pretty much everything you need to know about like the idea of time management, which I think is a joke. How can you tell one particular person to manage their time based off of what's worked for you? It really just comes down to better handling your crap and how you deal with it on a case-by-case basis. These two books do a really good job opening your eyes. Oh, and the last one is, I think it's called Performance. It's like the psychology of success or something like that. Very, very good book. And they all deal with that big piece right there, which is removing distractions and being able to execute on higher level, more complex tasks like eating, like particular work tasks, and so on. Cool? There's your summer reading list for this year. Come back next year and we'll talk about what you're able to find out. All right. At that particular meal, we're taking 15 to 20 minutes to eat. This is due to the fact that it takes our brain and our stomach roughly 20 minutes to gauge when we've had enough food. Okay? Weight loss comes down to one variable: calories in versus calories out. Okay? When we're purely talking about weight loss, we won't talk about like, what if I want to lose body fat versus lean muscle? Like, the majority of us just want to lose a little bit of weight or a lot of bit of weight. And it really comes just to calories in, calories out. If we don't know how full we are, or if we need to eat more food, it's going to be very difficult to control that formula. So just by removing the distractions, creating that awareness, and slowing down, I promise you, we've had people be rock stars on their nutrition program. Protein is there, vegetables, they're cooking meals, they got their snacks packed for the emergencies, they're stacked everywhere, frozen meals in case they need to bring something with them in a drop of a hat. Oh, I can't lose weight. Okay, I want you to do these things right here. I lost 4 pounds this week. No joke. Just getting back to like being aware of how much food you're taking in on a daily basis will drastically improve. Becca, I think you saw that when you went through our nutrition program one time around. As soon as we went to controlling those portions, like, wow, that came up pretty quick, right? Yeah. Again, simple, very simple, not easy to do, but it takes consistent, repetitive action in order to make that happen, okay? All right, we're coming up on an hour. I'm going to speed this up, but I'm going to go slow at the same time. Does that make sense, everybody? Great. And the last piece is eat until 80% full. Basically, this comes down to the generic recommendation that our stomachs have the ability to stretch. So sometimes we could wind up eating to full is really just our stomach being extended from how much food was just a little bit too much. And if we're looking to lose weight, we need to slightly undereat at each meal. Your body loves, and this is a theory, but I think it's a relatively good one, a set point. So every time you like gain a pound, your body's like, oh, we're good here. We like it here. Your body loves to add additional weight because we come from hunting gathering days where we would go days, sometimes weeks without food. It likes the ability to store. It does not like to lose weight, unfortunately. So when you achieve, say it's 200 pounds as a set point, your body's going to fight tooth and nail to stay there, all right? So all of like your sensations of like hunger, it's going to be like, hey dude, you sure you don't want to have that extra piece? Like, that's what it's about. All right, it's that set point that your body is fighting to stay at. We need to slightly undereat at each particular meal or in total in order to lose weight. But you can't undereat if you don't take enough time. And you can't take enough time and be aware if we are constantly distracted. Okay? So again, we talked about the how. Kind of like made everyone angry because, oh, I know my proteins now. I'm going to make this. I'm going to prep for the week. And then I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're not doing these pieces right here. Okay, so if you're going to start anywhere, go to KFC, get a big bucket of chicken, eat for 20 minutes, and sense your awareness of hunger, undistracted, eat to 80% full. You will lose weight more rapidly that way than you will trying to make perfect meals and dishes for you to have and meal prep and all that crap combined. Okay? Again, calories in versus calories out. Cool? All right, sweet. I just went over a crap ton. I'm going to hammer in one more point today, but before I do that, does anyone have any questions? Because that last portion, I don't know if anyone has questions because it's Yeah, go ahead.
What about skipping breakfast?
Skipping breakfast is not bad if you're the type of person that can say, at the following meal, I'm not going to overeat, or I'm not going to somehow make up those calories and then some at the following meals. So the majority of people that try intermittent fasting, they wind up doing really well, but then they just overindulge at particular meals going forward. And it really depends on the person, Bonnie. So if you're the type of person that some people will see success with it and some just won't. Some just won't. The question I would have is, why are we skipping breakfast?
Not hungry.
Then you shouldn't eat. Perfectly good reason to skip breakfast. Perfectly good reason to skip lunch too. If you're not hungry, you shouldn't be eating. Case in point. Cool. Siobhan.
Is there any, a limit of how much gap should be between each meal?
Nope. I mean,
Like I can have a meal or breakfast in morning 5, and if I'm not hungry, I can have lunch at afternoon 2.
I would suggest you not eat again until you're in that 5, 7, 6, 8 hunger scale. Yeah. I know that's difficult because we all have been treated since day school to breakfast at this time. Lunch is at 11 or 12, and then dinner's at 5. But I think we're at a different age now where we might be able to say, like, how many people are here are so strapped in at work that you're not allowed to take a lunch break when you just, like, most of us have that flexibility to say, okay, I'm going to take lunch at 2 as opposed to 12, as long as I get my work done, right? Take advantage of that. Because if you're not hungry, you shouldn't be eating. If your goal is weight loss. Okay.
Does it matter when you have dinner? Like,
It does not.
So this
It's
is
there's
you
all
have
these
to
weird
eat before
theories.
7.
Right, there's all these theories like, oh, if you eat at 8 p.m., that's terrible.
That's the what, not the how.
Okay.
Your body's going to process your food better. You might sleep a little better the earlier on you eat. But really, anybody who's ever said don't eat after 7 and don't eat after 9 was talking to the person who grabs for the bag of pretzels or Oreos when they're sitting down in front of the TV, more so than they were talking about someone just trying to get a meal in. No, for most people, it does not matter what time you eat.
And if one is exercising,
Yes.
let's say an intense exercise,
Yeah.
if one does not eat within, let's say, 2 hours, does it mean you're cannibalizing your muscle?
Not really. Not really. It's more important the food you eat before you exercise than after. So you think about food takes anywhere between like 4 and 8 hours to be broken down and distributed to your body, right? So if you work out at 8 o'clock and you then finish at 9 and you eat at 11, that food's not going to be ready until somewhere between 3 and 7. By then, your body is already in that cannibalistic state, which is really not that big of a deal, again, unless you're a bodybuilder and that 0.1% of success really matters. It's more important to have food before you work out because those nutrients are going to be more readily available in your system once that time comes.
So
How
this
much
whole
before?
grab a recovery shake
I would
after working out is crap.
Don't eat it. Yeah, don't eat it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll get back to your point in a second, but Becky asked about recovery shakes. If your goal is weight loss, they're totally unnecessary. You're going to hate me for saying this, but I drink a recovery shake because I'm trying to gain weight, and I can't eat enough during the day because I work 12-hour days. So I take a recovery shake that's got a banana, protein, almond milk, peanut butter, oats, just because I need more calories, and I'll throw up if I have another meal. But for the most of you, you do not need recovery shakes. How soon before? Really depends on the person. 1 to 2 hours is usually okay. The older you get, and I'm finding this out myself, the more time I need before I exercise. So I used to be able to eat half hour to an hour before and I could bang on my workout, sweat hard, breathe heavy, and have no problems. Now it's closer to like an hour and a half to 2. So it totally depends on the person, but usually like that 2-hour gap is a pretty good time window. But
I guess I usually eat like 5 minutes before I walk in the store. That's just how my time, but
That's
it's,
you.
I mean,
Are you having a meal? Or are we having a banana?
sometimes eggs,
Okay.
sometimes cereal.
Then you should be okay. Totally person dependent. But I found
So
that.
it's not like there's something bad, it's just like you
No.
don't feel good. If
Yeah,
you
like
eat
if you're
right
gonna
before
throw
you-
up during your workout because you
Right.
just ate, that's
Okay.
not good.
All right.
Yes.
That 80% rule is excellent help when you're eating at a restaurant.
Oh, big time. And that's something we didn't really cover, but if you're going out to eat, again, going back to the idea of planning ahead, look at that restaurant. What are they serving? Most restaurants have their menus, unless they're farm-to-table jerks. Most restaurants have their menus listed right there on their website, so you could say, okay, that fits in my wheelhouse, I'm going with that, because you're going to be far less likely to pick something good for you when the moment presents itself. Getting the idea of planning ahead and saying, again, if options are in the refrigerator and I don't have to go get it, I'm more likely to make a better choice. Cool? If we go out to a restaurant, plan ahead, but just like Chris said, she's absolutely right, 80% full. It's not so much the what, it's more the how we eat our food. Okay? If you eat out at restaurants a lot, I would highly encourage you to pick the restaurants that you know are going to serve food that is on your list. You know what item you're going to choose when you get there, and then eat to 80% full. But for most of us, we would do okay with the one time every 2 weeks we go out to eat saying, I'm just going to eat to 80% full and take my time. Anything else?
Does it matter how we cook these? Does it matter how we cook?
You're asking a bad question. You don't know the right question to ask. Not really, no. Not in, like, if you cook carrots, they're better for you than raw carrots, but, well, who cares? If we're trying to lose weight, it's more important to have the caloric balance to be there. So honestly, as long as it's not fried, I really don't care how you cook it.
I have a question about tofu.
Yeah, please.
Since it's high in estrogen, is it okay for anybody to eat it?
That's a really good question. And I don't know that anyone has a real answer to it, because I used to hear that, what was it? It wasn't tofu, it was something else. Yeah, soy. It's not high in estrogen. It's the molecular makeup looks like estrogen. So the thought process was it mimics estrogen in the body, and the body's going to react with that. But I really don't think that's true. Your body's pretty damn smart. Like, just because rat poison looks like protein doesn't mean your body's going to deal with it the same way. So I'm on the case that I think it's safe enough for the majority of people. I don't see a reason why I wouldn't recommend it to like a son or a husband or something along those lines. I wouldn't think it's a bad idea to mix it up, but at the same time, I can't see a real reason to bring it off the table when we're talking about the more realistic parts of life. If your son was trying to compete in the Olympics as a sprinter, he would probably not want to eat tofu because that percentage point matters.
It's not really estrogen though, they're isoflavones, they don't, your body doesn't look at them as estrogen.
Talk to the chemist after. I don't know.
And, well, the people that eat sort of South Asian diets or Mediterranean diets eat a lot of things like tofu and tempeh and lentils. They don't, it's not an issue.
Yeah. So I can't imagine that it would be. Yeah. Cool. I know we kind of went over time here, but the last piece I do want to talk about is knowing your body type. Again, calories in versus calories out is always going to win. However, certain nutrients do better with certain body types than others. This is me, and this is my wife. Okay?
We hate you.
You should.
In a loving way.
But
yes.
I hate me too because I can't put on muscle mass. It's a daily struggle. I eat 4,000 calories a day, and that's me trying to put on weight, and it doesn't happen. So I have the opposite problem you have. Okay?
I want your problem.
Yeah, I want your problem.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
We are going to tolerate carbohydrates better. We do well with proteins. We do well with vegetables. We do not do well with dietary fats. The more dietary fat that we take in on a regular basis, I'm not going to say it's bad, but the higher amount of dietary fat is going to argue with our bodies. So if you look like this, or your parents look like this, and you just have let your health not go the way it was supposed to go, chances are you're going to do well with carbohydrates, but you're not going to do so well with saturated fats. So I would avoid things like peanut butter and all that crap. Fried foods, not going to do too well. Fish oils and things like that are a different story, but typically fatty foods are not a go. Okay? Most people here are not this next one, which is called a mesomorph. This is Coach Jack. Coach Jack sneezes and adds a pound of muscle mass. Okay? He looks good with his shirt, whether he's 5% body fat or 20% body fat, and you would never know the difference unless you pinched his skin. Naturally, just more muscular. Okay? Again, most of the people not in this room, Samir, you kind of trend that way. You're like a blend between these two right here, right? These guys are going to be like the, I can eat a little bit of everything. I don't do better with one particular balance or the other. I can take a little fat, I can take a little carb, I do well with proteins and vegetables. Okay? I won't spend too much time on that because most of us aren't that, but endomorph, if you've struggled with weight, this last one here, if you struggle with weight the majority of your life, there's a high chance that you are a endomorph. Okay? You tend to pack fat evenly distributed throughout the body. Okay? This type of person is not going to tolerate carbs very well. So I would highly recommend, Bonnie, like you asked before, instead of having an extra carbohydrate portion, choosing a starchy vegetable like a broccoli, a cucumber, or something that has a crunch to it, because those are typically a little bit higher in sugar and carbohydrates than others, or some type of fruit, or sweet potato, or if you have to, make sure it's as complex as possible, like a quinoa or something along those lines. Your body's going to do very well with those carbohydrates, but pretty much everything else is unfortunately off the table for that individual.
It
Okay.
says here they can eat more fat.
They can eat more fat. Typically what happens is that, you know, when you, I might be speaking out of my profession here, but when you are a more heavy-set person, your body does a really good job of tolerating dietary fat, typically speaking. So you can eat things like olive oil, fish oil, nut oil, seed oil. Your body's going to do really well with them, and it's actually going to accelerate how well you get rid of fat. Okay? A lot of times when we're trying to shed a particular like storage source, the more of it you take in, the body is more likely to let it go when it comes to dietary fat. For me, I like carbohydrates and I like sugar. My body does really well with it. So the more of it I take in, the more of it my body says, okay, we're going to use these carbs for muscle glycogen, and we're going to allow you to store more energy in your muscle tissue. Okay? It's a very simplistic way of explaining it, but that's typically the way it goes. Okay? So going back to like building a perfect plate, find who you are, and I even have further breakdowns of like the palm, the cup, the fist, the thumb breakdowns. Okay? But with that plate, what are we going to make sure we do?
15 to 20.
No
15 to 20 minutes, no distractions, 80% full. Okay? I guarantee if you walk out of here today and you shred every paper in here except for that 5th page, you will be more successful. Guaranteed. Cool? Final questions, you guys. We covered a lot. You guys were awesome. We sat really engaged for an hour and 10 minutes. I didn't think it would go that long, but crushed it. Any further questions, comments? Do you want to throw something at me? Because I told you that the what doesn't really matter so much.
Are you born with one of these types and stay there, or can you switch? I guess I'm asking for people like me that gained weight when they were pregnant and just couldn't get rid of it.
Really good question. I would say that lifestyle influences it a lot, but the majority of people, yeah, genetics plays into like, my equation I like to use is life is 70% genetics, 20% lifestyle, and then 10% up for whatever. So whatever bad or good luck that happens to occur in your life is really where that lands. But yeah, you could fluctuate. Like right now, I'm an ectomorph, but I probably am somewhere now in between because I spent so much of my life trying to put on lean muscle mass that even if I stopped eating so many carbs, my body would probably do a pretty good job like retaining some of the lean muscle tissue that I've been able to put on. Yeah.
So it's more of that set point.
Yeah, going back to the set point theory. Yeah. Cool. Any more questions, you guys? All right. Someone give me an action step. What are you going to do tomorrow to put yourself in a better position for nutrition?
Create a calendar for grocery shopping, set a map.
Beautiful. Give me something. Grocery shop.
I'm gonna try to do this and removing distractions.
Beautiful.
Then we're going to try to take 15 to 20 minutes per meal.
Love it.
Not be distracted by meals.
Love it.
I'm gonna get rid of all the crap in my cupboard.
There you go. Set your environment up for success.
Well, just eat
I
it.
love
Don't
these,
throw
but
it
they
out.
gotta go.
Yeah, just eat it.
Yeah, just eat it
All
for now.
right, now, real quick, if you have something that you love, but you just eat too much of it, you'd be surprised by how putting it in a disadvantageous place in your cupboard really helps. Like if your kids eat something and you just can't stop eating it, put it on a higher shelf or put it out of sight. Out of sight, out of mind really does work. So if you're struggling with that, that's a big tip that you guys can take with you, is just get it out of your plane of sight. You got donuts sitting on the counter, you're gonna eat every single one of them. If it's in your house, you're eventually going to eat it, but you can slow that down if it's out of your sight. So Neil, give me an action.
15, 20 minutes.
Beautiful.
Be more of what I'm eating.
Beautiful.
Remove distractions.
Gonna go through the cupboards again,
The cupboards.
get rid of stuff. Being aware of when I'm full.
Cool.
Remove the distraction.
Distractions. Distractions. Awesome. Cool. Now, the sales pitch. Yeah, this isn't totally free. We have a nutrition program that we run here. Okay? It is a very extensive, in-depth, habit-based program. Okay? It goes for $100 a month. Here's how we run it. We go 3 months of running through that nutrition program. If you absolutely hate it and you're not sticking with it, you can stop at that time. Otherwise, just like our gym memberships, we look at a habit-based, long-term approach to nutrition just like we do fitness. If you find that incorporating these habits is not going well, or you feel like you need more coaching and accountability because you just need someone to go like that while you're going through this process, we are starting that program coming up in July. I think it's July 6th or 7th, which is the Monday after July 4th weekend. So you get one last shit show barbecue before we start the program. Okay?
So do you guys no longer do that app thing?
That is what I'm talking about. But we do it a little bit more extensively and specifically than we've done before. We have accountability meetings where we meet on a weekly basis for 4 weeks and bi-monthly after that. So I'm literally like a monkey on your back for the entire period. Cool. You guys let me know if it's something you want to take advantage of. Otherwise, guys, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.